Okay. So how I started off was like the lead that I got from you was we'll talk about biological slash chemical warfare. Um, and initially I thought that they might be the same thing. I was unsure whether it's the same thing or yeah, I was unclear about that. And I basically headed to the Wikipedia page. I thought I'll start on biological warfare. And so after that is when I learned that it comes under a category known as weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
So I think I can give a kind of a brief of what comes under weapons of mass destruction. So we have how do you say it? Radioactive, radiological, nuclear, chemical, and biological. And for anybody who is unsure what radiology means, it's uh, ra- radioactive poisoning. That's an example of warfare. And there was a
Yeah.
case.
So
Sorry,
is it different from nuclear? Or is it under the same category? Because
I
radiation.
would say it's related, but for whatever reason, it's classified separately.
Okay.
Let's say that it's a. I mean, I would say it's a byproduct of nuclear
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
processes
Yeah.
and blah, blah, blah. Are you aware of there was an attack on a British spy or a Russian spy? But the attack was carried out by Russia. I believe this person was being treated in UK. It was uranium poisoning.
Oh, are you talking about Navalny, the
I think so.
Putin's main opposition leader?
No, I think that happened recently. This
Yeah.
was back. This was before that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't find it right now. So this is just an example of what comes under that category and also shows that it's being used in the field. And also another interesting thing is, um,
Oh, okay. Like uranium poisoning is a radiological weapon. So
yes,
nuclear is a more conventional bomb kind of
yeah,
thing. So radiological would be using all these radioactive things and more maybe smaller dose, smaller, like maybe smaller targets, something like
and
that.
also I think the mode of um, dispersal or like how you carry out the attack is different. I think it's as simple as needles, like injecting it into the body versus bombs in nuclear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'll put a full stop there, and I'll move back to biological. Um, so
I mean, biological
biological,
would be what disease and COVID is a huge conspiracy theory, and no, that comes under biological.
yes, it does. There's an interesting little subsect of biological warfare, and it's called entomological warfare, which is basically the use of insects.
Mm-hmm.
But like in terms of interesting facts, I didn't find it very interesting. Like they literally refer to the use of bees and wasps
Hmm.
against your enemy. So it seems quite niche, but I thought that's an interesting point to note. Um, and yeah,
How,
so yeah. Mhm.
how does that like you throw a hornet's nest towards
I'm
your
not
enemy
sure.
camp?
I didn't come across how it's executed. I'm sure they figured out the logistics for that. Yeah. So when I was talking about the uranium poisoning incident, I also like spontaneously the question came to my mind of um, that I came across this act which was put in place in 1972. It's called the Biological Warfare Convention, and
Mm-hmm.
it makes the use of biological weapons in warfare a war crime.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering why. there was no news about why uranium radiation was illegal and considered a war crime. Because under this biological warfare convention, if somebody uses biological warfare in a war, it can be what do you say, prosecuted as a war crime.
It can have wider effects like that.
What do you mean?
Like, I mean, I don't know if like conventional warfare, if you're in the battlefield and you wouldn't be using uranium poisoning in a war field, right? You might be targeting, like you said, some spy, or if you have a single target, maybe, and it could have like.
I actually think that the policy regarding nuclear and radiology might not be as mature yet, or I haven't come across it. So that's kind of a question that I wanted to put across to our audience or anyone who might have more information or is curious about researching more, which is like what sort of like what are the deterrents for these weapons of mass destruction, particularly nuclear and radio.
Do you believe all these countries, all these nations have already developed enough chemical and biological warfare, but they're not letting people know? Do you? I mean, wouldn't they? Wouldn't they build it?
We never know.
I mean, there has to be some kind of transparency, but it's a gray area. I think you can't let your enemy know a lot about what you have. But also these being a crime, like you said, like a war crime. But would that stop countries from developing? There might be already programs and
I might say that it boils down to personality types. Like for example, I think if I was in that position of like making the call, should we develop more biological and chemical warfare? Like with my understanding of the world and like how I see the future, I would say like it's not worth it. Don't do it. We'll find other solutions for it. So I might argue that it's personality based, and then also like this applies. I would say it applies to the advisors to the president as well, because it's obviously not the president who always makes the decision, as it's not a sole decision making system. So yeah.
And also like with biological, it can get out of hand easily, right? Like
Yeah,
the disease, or
I think that's
can't
one reason.
Switch, or you don't have a limited area of.
I think that's one reason why there is something tangible as the biological warfare convention, because there were cases of it's not easy to control, and so I've noted down these like examples of where biological warfare was used. And there was an incident in the 1970s in Russia, Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a disaster that's compared to Chernobyl, except that this is happening in the biological warfare sphere of the world. So basically, out of a military facility in a region in Soviet Union, anthrax, the whatever bacteria that spreads anthrax released, and it spread over a radius of 200 kilometers. So I believe that's the closest. I mean, unless you want to argue that COVID was militarily released, I think that's the most recent mishap in the biological warfare space.
Anthrax reminds me of one particular. I mean, it's not really warfare, but it's a fun fact. I think you know about permafrost, like all these frozen regions of the world that has been frozen for centuries and millions of years. So with global warming, all this is melting. The permafrost is melting, and again in Siberia, I think there was this case where one deer that was frozen for a long time in this this permafrost, it melted and the body got free,
Mhm.
and it contaminated the water supply, and it had anthrax. So it was an old virus basically. So there is also this threat of uh, old diseases, coming back.
Mhm.
Like these are frozen in the permafrost set. So some of them even predate humans, and our bodies are not even uh, equipped to fight or withstand these microorganisms. So they are possibly another cause for, like, could be a cause for like massive deaths in if the permafrost continues to defrost.
Yeah, that sounds like an unknown risk, like a known unknown risk. Have you heard of those, like the categorization of risks? Like there are known
Mm.
risks, there are known unknown risks, and there are unknown unknown risks. I don't know if I'm using the correct words, but do you get the logic?
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
heard of
okay.
it, but not I haven't like really looked into it, or like not much.
I think how it's popularly phrased is there are things we know, there are things we know we don't know, and there are things that we don't know. Fuck that becomes a tongue twister. Yeah, basically. Uh, so I also there is this little historical fact that I can share about the use of biological warfare. Some examples, like a pretty prevalent, let's say high profile example is in the 1340s.
Hmm.
Um, so the bodies of Mongol warriors who had died due to the plague were thrown over the walls of the city Kaffa, which is in Crimea, and it's speculated that this might have been the reason for the spread of the Black Death.
So like
Um,
dead bodies that were infected, thrown
yeah,
over
with the
into
plague
the city or outside.
outside, out of the city, onto their attackers,
Okay.
and that might have
Yeah. I
led
mean,
to the.
we are creative with how we can kill our own species. You know?
Mhm. Mhm.
I was coming across um I came across AI, like I said.
Right.
So the future looks different. The future battlefields look different. Even cyber attacks, cyber warfare was catching on, or is catching on.
Mhm.
Like, have you heard of the Stuxnet program? Like the
No.
Israel developed a virus to stop the nuclear program of Iran, I think.
So yeah, I've heard of
Basically,
it.
yeah, it was a virus basically. So it was apparently developed by Israel.
Israel.
There's no
Mhm.
claim or anything, but uh, yeah, so they released this virus to stall the nuclear development program of Iran. So basically, there are no casualties, but I think it's better in a way to eliminate human casualties. Like, I was thinking when I was looking at all these articles, like the future looks like it's gonna be like all the human elements gonna be out of the war. Ideally, it's gonna be our robots versus your robots. So it's gonna be what I was even thinking, that there should be a designated battlefield somewhere, so that if nations want it, you can battle it out there. You know, instead of killing the civilians. You have your weapons, we have ours. You battle it out. And all the weapons companies are also happy. You can sell your weapons. You can make your money. At the same time, minimize the. But then, what would it achieve? I don't know. Where would a completely where would a war with only robots involved end?
So I there is this website called Union of Concerned Scientists.
Hmm.
You've heard of it?
Yeah, like they're against nuclear development and not. I
Yeah. So
think. Yeah.
basically, what they're what they're advocating for, and it seems quite recent. Like they in this website that I'm looking at. Let me share my screen. So it says, continuing to educate the Biden administration. So that's quite interesting.
I think it's a sham, all this educating all the Biden. I mean, how much will they listen? I don't think they'll.
No, bro,
get rid of
I
all.
would actually argue that that might be a more of an emotional response than a logical one. I'm not sure if that's the right way of framing it, because we might just be so conspiracy theories basically that everybody is working together and all of that. But at the same time, we have to account for and say that there are, like, reality is actually there are people working on
No,
different things.
I think I don't think it's a conspiracy theory that there is a military industrial complex, as they say. Like, they're supplying weapons. America is known for being the base of, weapons manufacturing. So their profits come from that, defense contracts. So they need a war to spend all this. So America dons the savior of the world, and they go into war, citing the world savior role. All these wars, only when America does it, it's justified. So it's the media is heavily west leaning, or already the other day I was watching an interview given by Biden, not an interview or whatever. So he tells, like, he's asked, would you take military action, if China invades Taiwan?
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, that's what we committed to. So I've also come across this idea where the leaders already tell you that the war is going to happen enough number of times, so that the public is already aware that the war is going to happen. So even with Ukraine and Russia, so until when it finally happened, we also feel justified that it's okay. So this was happening. This was bound to happen. But in the end, it's none of these fellows who are gonna suffer. It doesn't really matter to them. Every nation has enough resources for its own survival. It's only misgovernance and corruption that's holding them back. What does America need more of? What does UK need more of? What do any of these guys need? What does Russia need more of? Nothing. But it's the Ukraine-Russia case is once the NATO started moving more towards the east, that Russia became more paranoid, which is also kind of natural, being America's history being there. I'm not really hopeful that things will change. That these guys will, say, we can't have any more war. But I think the general, trajectory is that the more development happens when you're more peaceful. More prosperity comes when you're peaceful. So eventually there'll be leaders who will see this. I mean, I'm not sure it's gonna happen anyway in the next three decades, at least until the old guard steps down.
Okay, so that was a thought that I had, which is like when they created the.
You didn't finish saying what that was about, the Union of Concerned Scientists.
It was just to highlight that they are promoting diplomacy. Like they're advocating for America to be the leader in deterring nuclear action and leaning towards diplomacy. And so I believe that should be what the future of war looks like. I would say, I mean, I guess we can't eliminate disagreement between human beings. And like, I think the way of how the output for that should be debate.
Should be?
Debate.
Oh, yeah. But it's true that American government is heavily lobbied by the industry, weapons industry. Yep. Because today's shooting, You heard that news, the 14 kids shot. I mean, there has been 10 years, there has been 3,000 something mass shootings in the US last 10 years. In this year alone, 200 and something mass shootings in US. So there is this huge lobbying group called the NRA, National Rifles Association. So they are the ones who fund primarily more towards the Republican side, and their Second Amendment, where they have the right to carry weapons. So lobby groups like that, they hold a very powerful sway over those who make policy, basically. So it's again the common people who pay the price for the profits. So I hope something comes out of all this. Otherwise, it's all just Biden or whoever it is at the top just playing, just rhetoric. They don't really mean what they say unless they do something in action. I'll not be convinced. All these words and interviews they give, I am like, I believe it has. I mean, a lot of people has become really upset about the thing now. A lot of Democratic governors are pointing hands towards the Republicans, but no one is the better. But yeah, anyway, moving on from US, I also came across Israel is really good at this defense and weapons manufacturing also. I came across drone warfare, autonomous drones, like you come in a swarm and the fighter jets release these drones, tiny drones, and they come in a swarm, and so there is this air defense systems, anti-aircraft defense systems, which automatically fire a missile if there's an incoming missile or enemy aircraft. So these are autonomous systems. So what their strategy is that they release all these drones together so that it's too much for the system to handle, and at least one of their projectiles will hit the defense system. So there is something like that, and there is also something called hovering munition called HAROP. It's a loitering munition. So loitering munition is basically a missile that's fired and it has a wing. A wing also deploys from it. So it stays afloat and it detects the thing by itself. Once it's detected, it just dives into that, like it just straight crashes into it. So it's called kamikaze drones, like the Japanese fighter pilots back in World War II. So it's like a thing that just stays around until it finds its target, and then it dive bombs into them. So on their website, they are also claiming the sentence fire and forget. That's how they are marketing that product. It's called HAROP, HAROP.
Okay.
So crazy things out there. Also, Elon Musk was talking about how there's enough tech around to make a killer drone. Like you just put a small drone, you put enough explosives in it, and you put an AI facial recognition thing. You feed the thing with the target's face, and then just set it out. You have enough things. It just goes around until it finds your face, and then it just explodes near you. So there are enough and more crazy things out there that can be weaponized. I don't know. I hope we used all this creativity somewhere else, though. I mean, sure, we are creative. I'm not saying. I came across something else. Yeah, lasers. Lasers are another. Could be another step. High powerful, very extremely powerful laser beams that will blind the enemy's systems. Like it can fry your motherboard like that. It has enough radiation energy in it.
I would like to correct. I mean, not correct. I would like to highlight the fact that we need to stop referring to fellow humans as enemies.
Yeah. I mean, it's the governments. None of the governments are driving this narrative that across the border is your enemy. And a lot of people, they just follow. Yeah, because there are always people who will just follow. There are followers.
That sounds like a last century way of talking. Across the border lies your enemy.
Yeah, people are still stuck in the last century. A lot of them.
I think it's nice. Like once you realize like your intellectual capacity, um, capabilities, you can pretty much avoid all this physical stuff.
Like,
I mean, why I thought about that was because, like, I was thinking, so we might be primed to thinking that there's always some bad thing to fight. So I suppose our enemies in this day and age become the hardships that our society, that our species faces. I think that sounds like a healthy outlook.
yeah, I mean, you basically solved the economic inequality and you won't have any more enemies to be concerned about. You have a good life. What are you
Economic
concerned about?
inequalities, health concerns,
Yeah.
exploration into space.
It's always the politicians that chemical.
I have a fun fact.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that the Japanese had planned to release The Plague in the city of San Diego in California in World War II?
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't carry through because the Japanese surrendered in August and the date for the planned attack was in September.
Thank God.
Yep.
The plague in the US after World War II. I mean, they were really creative, the Japanese, huh? They were willing to give their lives.
But I read that they were not as technologically advanced as the United States and the United Kingdom.
Definitely.
But they were the ones that utilized biological warfare more than the others against China.
They are a warrior kingdom, no Japanese. So warrior culture they have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, guys are brave.
Also, like one last prepared thing that I would like to share is, so I just questioned what sort of protection mechanisms that we have in place against weapons of mass destruction, and I came across this. There is a office that comes under the Department of Homeland, and again, it's US. It's called the Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction Act.
Okay.
And take it for what you will. It was signed into effect by President Trump in December 2018. So the strategic goals of this office is to anticipate, identify, and assess weapons of mass destruction threats. Yeah, I'm not getting into that. I can link the website below. But basically, there's this organization that's intended to be proactive and come up with solutions. And they had a press release that they released just this month, which said they had a meeting last month. There's this program called Securing the City, and it has like 14 jurisdictions, like 14 cities in US. So in this meeting, local like senior officials participated to share information, strategic direction, and critical development. And how that works is, and this meeting was focusing on radiological and nuclear weapons. So they were sharing information that relates to detection equipment, training, and technical support. So this was quite recent, like literally last month.
Who are they? I mean, what is the point of that though? Like, they have this meeting, but US has to lead the way to, demilitarize and decommission the nuclear weapons. I mean, if all the countries somehow, do you think we should retain nuclear weapons as a species?
No.
I mean, I'm thinking this is sci-fi level now. I'm thinking about extraterrestrial life and another species attacking.
So, fam, I just searched weapons of mass destruction on Reddit, and the search results, there's one on the conspiracy subreddit, and the conspiracy, like that post was about what if the governments are keeping the UFOs a secret because aliens have the technology to disable nuclear weapons, and like that's basically why they're keeping UFOs a secret, because they don't want people to know that the nuclear weapons have all been disarmed.
But they're still somehow able to keep them imprisoned. They have all that tech. I mean, but yeah, on a species level, I saw this video the other day, like, we have to, since we are a species and if we have enough tech, you will obviously you'll expand into other planets eventually, and you also have your weapons. So the video, it's by Kurskis Act. We will link it down to in the description. It's a really interesting video. So they compare us to a hunter in the forest, and we have an arrow, and we see another hunter in the forest. We encounter another hunter, and we only have one shot. So it's like, who shoots first? What if he shoots first and you're dead? Or should you shoot first to save your own life? So at a species level, by the time we will be having, weapons that could, kill off planets, or we already have enough weapons that can kill off entire planet, make it uninhabitable. We already have the tech. So if we encountered another being, we have to assume that they are also like us, because if they are expanding with that tech, they might also be thinking like us. So there's a high chance that they are also like us. So what if they shoot first, or would you shoot first? Or what if we don't have enough time to shoot back?
I've actually
have a language to, say we are peaceful or we don't want a confrontation. What is that first meeting gonna be looking like if at all it happens someday? We don't have a language. We don't have things to say. The first moment that we meet, it could possibly mean warfare between species. But it also put some hope, saying that more development happens because it's peaceful. So peace gets valued over time. So maybe into the future.
So I think that it's a very interesting and very useful way of thinking about it, and I think it highlights what is truly critical, which is communication. So my proposed solution would be to have defensive plays, like some form of armor or some form of maneuvers, like so that you can move yourself physically out of harm's way. And to really get imaginative, let's say the aliens have mind control capabilities. I mean, we would ideally have defenses against those as well. And our first aim would be to understanding the language that they speak. That's the first criteria.
But will we have enough time? That's what. Will they shoot?
Our defenses should be strong enough. I think we
always... I mean, they were talking on a planetary level. Like, you can't, really defend against a nuclear attack or something.
There is no what do you say? There's no clock ticking that says you have to take an action right now, or else what? Like like
But
yeah, like both of you might have your hands on the trigger. Um, I don't know, like just take the time to figure it out instead of taking an action that you're not sure about. Or
one thing I would like to see somehow is
Mhm.
interspecies communication, like you said. If we could talk to somehow, figure out all these animals and what they speak. Of course, they have their own languages. So
Mhm.
there are interesting people out there who are like living with lion prides, and they're able to understand how they communicate certain social signals. This guy who lives with the lions, he's part of a pride.
Yeah, exactly. I know exactly who you're talking about. I don't know his name, but
You
I know
know,
who you're talking about. Yeah, the
have
blonde
you?
haired, blonde short
Yeah, yeah,
hair guy.
yeah. Dean Schneider. Yeah,
Yeah.
what a guy. I mean, how do you even think about that? You go into a lion pride and just become part of the family. I mean, I would love to.
So
I would dream of that, but I don't know.
that's all.
Where
That's
to
also
start?
that's also an interesting element that we can bring up, which is and also it's potentially a limitation, which is we don't understand their roars. Like
Hmm,
to us, their roars are still sounds, but we
hmm.
do interpret their body movement for whatever reason. I think that's the benefit of having emotions. Like I think that might be the universal language, at least on Earth.
Emotions, like we we are able to emote, but we are able to understand only our own emotions, our own species emotions, right? Maybe
But
dogs and
so
cats,
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
we not
exactly.
maybe.
I would extra. So I was basing like I can speak quite strongly to it based on my experience with my cat, because I mean I get the signal. Like I know when he wants to like headbutt me, and like when there's displays of affection. Like we understand that, and I classify that as emotion, right? So that's why I said emotion. And I would extrapolate cats to lions. I'm pretty sure
Hmm.
even whales. Have you come across material that says animals
Yep,
don't have
yep.
emotions? That don't have
Uh,
emotions. All
no,
living
no,
creatures have emotions, right?
not. I haven't come across. I was thinking about the whales thing that you say. There was
Mm-hmm.
this documentary about this team of scientists who were trying to figure out the whale songs.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the researchers were based out of University of Scotland, the west of Scotland, east of England. What is it? My God. Anyway, I'll link the documentary's name and things in the description. So it's really interesting. They were trying to study the sounds that whales make. That these songs are transferred from whales to younger ones, and they add their own intricate, addition to each whale song. So they are still trying to figure out what does it mean, these songs of the whales, blue whales especially. Blue, not sure which whale, but yeah, there is this huge thing going on. I think it's called the sea something.
Quite interesting. I'm building like a hierarchy in my brain, which is like the objectives of communication varies or multiplies with the level of intelligence.
Mhm.
Like I mean, let's say we are the most intelligent. Right? We can argue that,
Mm.
right? We should be the most intelligent species on this planet. Uh, so our purposes of communication is to collaborate and to communicate our state, our internal state to others. Yeah, I suppose that sums up the objectives of communication for humans.
Mm. Mm.
I think collaboration is the only additional objective of communication that advanced intelligent species have. I think other life forms communicate to indicate internal states, like how my cat cries for food or attention.
There is this
It's
idea,
not.
funny idea that um, cats cats have been really successful in their evolution.
Domesticating.
Yeah,
That's true.
domesticate them. Yeah,
Yep.
they're like we'll feed them, we'll take care of them. So it's a huge win for the species if you look. And
It's playing into our
similarly,
desire for
yeah.
company.
Also, you know that virus that cats have.
What virus?
Supposedly, all these cats have they transmit a virus to the human, which does go into our brain. I mean, and it makes us feel better when we are around the cats. I'm
It's a
not making this
virus.
up. There is, yeah.
Oh my God. My cat's been infecting me. I'm disappointed. Simba.
Disease that makes you like cats. It's called toxoplasmosis. Go as far as ancient Egypt. Condition is caused by a parasite that can only reproduce in the intestines of cats. Today, about 1/3 of the world's population is infected with toxoplasmosis, but most people who have it will never know it.
So what does it do to us?
I'm in the page medical news today. So, however, science seems to contradict this popular belief. Wait. No, wait. As humans who still inherit enlightenment's worship. Wait. This whole. Well, okay, we like to think that our decisions are autonomous and driven by reason, but science contradicts this popular belief. Now, new studies suggest infection with cat-borne parasite Toxoplasma gondii could make people change their behavior so that they become more prone to business and entrepreneurial ventures. Now, Aaron, I get where you're getting all this entrepreneurial.
What?
Yeah, it makes you more prone to business and entrepreneurial. It's on medicalnewstoday.com. So, wait. Let me.
I was entrepreneurial.
Yeah, basically the thing is it reproduces in the cat's gut. The host behavior needs to change in a way that it makes it more what? Wait. More like my feline. Yeah, gondii in humans. Okay. Okay, wait. Okay, this is interesting. The almost 1,500 undergraduate students were part of the study. They took the saliva samples, and those who tested positive were more likely to be interested in business and management.
Yo.
Specifically, people who were positive were 1.4 times more likely to major in business and 1.7 times more likely to have an emphasis in management and entrepreneurship. More likely to have started their own business compared with other attendees. I'm hearing this for the first time, but oh, okay. But I've heard that it makes you like the cat more. It makes you feel good around the cat. So it's nothing bad, nothing to worry about. But it is a thing. There is a virus that can transmit. It's not the norm, but it happens some cases. Anyway, if it makes you start a new business, I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, I was thinking, what is the aim of a virus making you want to start a business?
Yeah.
Wait. Let's not call it business. Maybe the virus's aim is to make you more active, thereby leading it to get more nutrients, making the host more healthy so that it gets healthier in turn. I can buy that and make that plausible.
Scientific American.
What else do we
also may have more subtle effects. It contains an enzyme that creates dopamine.
The virus.
Yeah. Theoretically, a strange toxo-induced immune response in the brain could cause psychosis. But relax, only cat fans, cat lovers. It's perfectly fine to have a cat. Extremely successful beings. I hate it when people compare cats and dogs, by the way. They say, oh, the dog is more loyal. Yeah, it has different characteristics. It's a cat for a reason. It's a dog for a reason. Different animals. You can like one more than the other, but you can't compare the same characteristic in between. If you prefer loyalty, go for that. But don't say the cat is not loyal and don't diss the cats. Cats have their own points. I don't know. You could cut that. It doesn't have any relation to the topic. Just a rant.
It's okay.
Yeah, anyway. Weapons of mass destruction. I guess we should send a cat over to the aliens if we meet them the first time.
See, these are the reasons why I want to live forever. Because I want to play on a time scale where we see this sort of progress, where we actually traverse all the planets.
Oof.
And we know what's where, blah, blah, blah. So I am selfish in that way. Like, I mean, I can still have kids and they can still have that experience, but I want to experience it too. So let me live forever.
What if it is gonna be a horrible future? You know?
I would argue that we have the power to change it.
Interesting. Wanting to live forever would be, but yeah, I've come across this idea that it would be boring. So it would take away the joy of living. So it's the idea of death that makes it living exciting. That this is gonna end one day. That makes you get up out of the bed.
No, I mean, I can't.
Otherwise, you would always have time. You have infinite time.
That's just bad habits.
No, imagine infinite time, dude. You're gonna be alive forever. Eventually, you're gonna kick your habits. There's always worlds and stuff gonna out there.
But I think the aspect of like taking action now would still count. Like you don't have to think that I'm going to die, so I need to live.
But your years are going, that days are numbered. You know that idea that that's always in there behind.
Isn't it more exhilarating to think that you live forever and that you're truly immortal and you can aim for the sky and build huge things
what if you're poor and you're living forever and you just you don't have social mobility, you are just on the streets forever because the society is bad?
I would say,
see, you are immortal in the sense that you will live on forever, but you can be killed, right? Like if you're not, what kind of immortality are we talking about? Like, is it like Superman kind of, invincible immortality? Or, I mean, I don't know if Superman's immortal, but yeah.
I haven't exactly thought about that, but I don't want to die. And ideally, like in this society, we get to a point where we don't kill each other. I suppose we're still... Huh?
Yeah. Say.
I mean, every argument that you tell me is just a systemic problem that can be fixed. Like, so if you tell me that death is the reason, I mean, we need death so that, like you can pass the beacon to the young, so that the old, you use the phrase like,
old guard.
Yeah, exactly. That's like a systemic thing. Like, that's a systemic
thing. Have you watched this movie, Elysium?
Yes. It's the tablet thing, right?
Where the super rich go live in a space station.
No. Sounds familiar. I might have, might not have. No, I don't think I watched it. No.
I think it is Matt Damon or Mark Wahlberg, one of them.
Okay.
It's a really interesting sci-fi movie, like where there is, in the future, this Earth is like screwed up, polluted, but the super rich move on to a space station, like huge. Look at it there's only 1% of the super rich already, so it's kind of doable. And the poor try to, like try to reach there, try to get into the. It's not a space station as such. It's a future where they have control over gravity. So it's a huge thing. Like it's a planet on its own, but it's an artificial space, artificial.
Okay, let's bring that to reality. Let's say hypothetically that happens, which I don't think will happen. Because I mean, for one, I think the dissatisfaction of the people down below, there'll probably be smart people, and they might probably create some sort of weapons that can shoot down that system, that floating space station. So, and also, like I would say, like it's not like all rich people are the same, right? So there will still be rich people who say, no, what we're doing is not right. We can't abandon them and live in our own world. We have to go help them. And that also answers your question of the poor man who lives forever poor in a society, blah, blah, blah. So either his thought patterns, attitudes change and he helps himself, or somebody has the heart to help him. Nothing is constant, right? So I would say that my case for living forever still stands strong.
Yeah.
Systemic changes, like yeah, the old guard thing. I mean, I don't know. I haven't actually thought about it and haven't practically implemented it. But why don't we put in effort to educate or just to, again, debate with incumbents? Like what I'm arguing is, like, let's say we have criticisms of President Biden. Yeah. I mean, the systemic change that I would make is we need to have team members who literally tell you the truth. We have all these Instagram posts that say like true friends are the people who tell you reality as it is, blah, blah, blah. Why is that same thing not happening on a government scale in professional teams? Why are we not actively fighting against sugarcoating?
I have, I don't know if this can be a good answer to that, but I saw this video where they say like there's no way to measure human trust, like in the business sector. Or this was coming from how Marines, US Marines, and how skilled they are, and what kind of people would form the most elite team. How do they choose the team members? So this guy draws a graph, X and Y graph, and so it's skill versus trust. So highly skilled and high trust. So they would always prefer. So a highly skilled, low trust guy could be a problem when you're going out in the field. High skill, low trust. High skill, high trust is preferable, but they are too independent. No, it's like a X and Y. So I don't even know. So high skill, highly skilled, highly trusted is the idea is there, but they tend to act too independent. So they would prefer a guy even with low skill but high trust, as opposed to someone with high skill and low trust. You definitely don't want the low skill, low trust guy. There are four people. So they would prefer a guy even with a higher trust level, but sadly there is no way for you to measure how the trustworthiness, this video was saying, at government level, because it doesn't really benefit them to say the truth. I think truth doesn't pay.
Oh my god, that's disturbing.
It doesn't benefit themselves, dude. If you look at it, there are people who are giving you a lot of money to keep their businesses running. So sadly, it's corrupted. It's corrupted somehow. Not somehow. Money is the language that these people speak. So they would save their own skins, and it's very selfish that all these political leaders are doing at the core. But someday, something will happen. It's happening slowly. slowly it's happening.
As always, I just want to point out that we have a resource as in the form of a Slack workspace. Do join us for discussions. We would like to kick it off. We would like to make it a vibrant community. It would give us a boner if it does.
Us, maybe you, not me.
Not a physical boner, but an intellectual boner of having created something successful and meaningful and having positive impact. So I think you get the basic idea of what we're aiming for. We have groups divided based on topics to encourage conversation. That's pretty much it. You can also individually reach out to members as well. You can have one-on-one conversations or group conversations. So for the 10% or 3% or 5% of our audience that reached the end of this video, this is for you.
I think we should put it in the beginning, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Let's try that.
Okay. Yeah. All right then. All right.